start with a quick audience poll. If we had actually asked a question, how many of you believed the autonomous car was a science fiction 10 years back? How many of you would have raised your hands? Honest opinion. Yeah. Thank you. I'm fairly sure that over time, things have actually changed a lot, and you're all aware that huge changes have actually happened over there. And we're going to have three parts of this discussion, and we will hopefully have enough time for all of us to talk to you as well as you asking questions and making comments here, right? The first topic will be on what has actually happened from a technology perspective in the last 2 or 3 years, or what's happening now in the respective companies that we are all coming from, right? For a few minutes, we'll actually talk. Then we'll talk about legal, legislative angles on what we needed to do. Then we will talk about societal impact, right? Acceptance, what are the things that we have to do, right? So we'll actually quickly start with the technology side. I'll actually kickstart by saying that we don't really have any foils, so you can just listen to us at this time. So the thing that we wanted to initially talk about technology, right? What are the important things from a technology perspective that would have actually happened for an autonomous car? The way that I define autonomous car or autonomous vehicle is, right, it's an all-seeing. It can actually see everything. Right? I mean, it has multiple sensors. It can actually see what is actually happening real time. It's all knowing in the sense that it can also understand. It can also communicate with other cars, infrastructures, and whatnot. Right? It's all knowing. It knows about traffic conditions and whatnot. It's also all deciding. Right? It's almost like God, right? Omnipotent. I mean, it's all seeing, all knowing, and all deciding things. Right? It's really that powerful. That's the definition of how we look at it. And the way that we describe this will be in the three sections that we talked about from a technology perspective. From a technology perspective, when I put it right, there are multiple things actually happen in the last 2 or 3 years from where I can actually see from Texas Instruments is about what are the things that is happening from a 77 gigahertz radar, right? I mean, RF technology improvement that has actually happened, single chip CMOS really making this things happen. Less than 2 watts, amazing cameras with much lower latencies and resolutions where you can actually hide the camera in several places in the car, and several of our customers actually do that already today. All right? And there is a wonderful thing that is actually happening with respect to much lower power in computing that is enabling to be exceeding on the algorithms and technologies and algorithms that is actually happening, machine learning really happening in the car, which is really fueling this from our perspective when we really look at it, right? And overall, lower power of computing is really enabling that several of the stuff that used to happen earlier is we are able to quickly put in the car and really hide it behind the mirrors or whatnot, right? Wherever these technologies are actually going, right? So these are the 3 or 4 places where I see huge improvements that has actually happened in the last 2 or 3 years. If somebody looked at it 5 years back, they would clearly say that CMOS, RF 77 gigahertz, not necessarily possible, less than 2 watts, these kind of cameras, not necessarily possible, right? But those have actually happened because of multiple companies like several of you working over here really happening, right? And that things have actually happened. I would also like at this point to hear from the panelists over here, right? In their own respective companies, what are the various things that they're actually trying to do, and what are the various things that they're actually trying to do from an India center, right? It'll be we are all curious to really listen to that, and I'll move over to you, Manu. What are the things that you are actually doing in the company overall, as well as what are the interesting things that you're doing in the center around this topic?
First of all, good morning, and Sunov, thanks for having me here. Mercedes-Benz is strongly believing in various degrees of autonomous driving, and if you look at the S500 Intelligent Drive, if you look at the luxury in motion car that was seen in the Las Vegas Auto Show, if you look at the Future Truck 2025, that's so much in the news. We even have a registration in Nevada already done recently. Software-based mobility, various degrees of autonomous driving is something we strongly believe in. We've been very much using series-based sensors and technologies that Santosh partly mentioned to put that all together. There's a strong move towards software definition and understanding the world. So like he said, all seeing in a way, making sure that the car gets to see as a machine what the driver sees, and let the algorithms decide step by step from what we call assisted systems, driver assistance systems, advanced driver assistance systems, all the way to the Bertha Benz drive that was done 2 years ago already. we are very much active. I'll reserve my examples for the later questions, but fully believe in that concept.
I mean, definitely we all know that Daimler as a company has really focused on mechanical engineering as an important aspect of everything that you really offer, right? That really remains the core competence from which you have always operated. Does it remain the same way, and how do you really look at the software angle coming into that mix?
No, I think, no, the company has never been shying away from software. In fact, for long ago, since ECUs were introduced, we know that part of the operations of the car were taken over by software. We are just wanting to pioneer now, and you know the concept of Daimler is just to be in the area of mobility. This is the company in 1886 that took the horse away from the carriage and said, we put an engine there. And now we want to take the driver away from the car and put an autonomous software there. So from that perspective, we've believed in independence of mobility for a very long time. We've moved equally ahead. IT is everywhere in the company. Next week, the CIO is visiting India, talking about how much importance that plays within the company. It's cutting edge. It's machine learning. It's artificial intelligence. It's all of that right now. It's a company that believes in mobility as a wholesome, as an emotional aspect, and not just in selling cars for long now. And there are so many examples, starting from Car2Go to other examples in regions where Daimler believes in giving people the freedom of mobility and not just in the individual products, and that's all coming out of software, intelligent software.
Thank you. Yeah, we will quickly move to Shenoy. Shenoy has been in the industry for a really long time, and he's actually powered several of these innovations over several decades, right? I'm actually curious to listen from him on how he looks at the changes that this opportunity is actually bringing in front of all of us, Shenoy.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here on the panel today. From Bosch side, we see that the major trends that are happening is basically in mobility related to electrification, related to connectivity, and of course automated. For me, the autonomous car is slightly a misnomer. I look at it more as evolution or revolution in terms of automation. There's more and more automation coming. Meanwhile, we already know that some of the simple things within the car which we used to control, whether it's AC control, whether it's navigation, or whether it is wiper control, these have been automated already. Next step was, of course, obviously with respect to cruise control and adaptive cruise control, emergency braking. These also, I think, meanwhile, on the roads when you go, all the modern cars have this, and this is part of the automation that has happened. Now what we have installed systems which is coming into the controlled environment, whether parking a car into the garage. I think many of you might have seen the mobile phone based. You can use a mobile phone, make the car park automatically, or in a valet parking, which will come soon in a controlled environment where you simply leave the car at the entry of a parking lot, and the valet parking is taken care. The car parks for itself, finding a slot, and this is not far away. In next 2 years, this would be fully available in Europe. The full automation we see coming in stages, of course. On the highways, it will be assisted. It's very clear that even now we expect that the driver is in control, but doesn't have to bother too much, because parallelly it's able to detect anything coming, whether there's an instance of emergency which it needs to brake, or if it can simply plateau or follow another car in front of it. So these aspects which are happening slowly, I think will revolutionize now because of the availability of computing that's available in the cars and the amount of sensors that are already there. I think the hardware side is meanwhile taken care, but there's a lot of software behind it. The artificial intelligence that's being built to make it really happen in different environments. I think in detail I'll come to later, but one more thing that's very important in this aspect is the connectivity. We believe in by 2025 we will have almost all cars with fully connected, and if you have 50% of the cars on the road with fully connectivity, able to communicate, this will give the real edge in terms of automation. The automation can reach 100% autonomous driving only when connectivity is also ensured, so that all conditions can be taken care, and not just what the radar sees or the camera sees, but what car to car can communicate and bring this forward. And this we believe will be the next part of this three trends that are happening. And with electrified cars, I think it's even more important that the car is able to decide when to charge and when it's needed, etc. And autonomously, if this can be managed when the person doesn't want to use the car and things like that. So these three trends are somehow interlinked. And that's how I see from technology.
Good. Hey, can I ask a question? I mean, what is really driving it? Is it the needs of the users really driving today when Bosch looks at it, or is it really the advancement of technology that has actually happened so far, right? You've actually seen several decades of it. What do you really think is the driving force behind this today?
From my point of view, it is the need of the hour. It's more of a fatigue of a driver. For example, when you're going on Autobahn in Germany, you find that you can drive 2 to 3 hours without really interrupting. If this time can be effectively used. In the city, when there is a traffic jam, for example, we already see in Bangalore, when it's stop and go, we always wish, okay, every time I brake and accelerate, if this part of it can be simplified. I guess it is coming from the individual and slightly to reduce fatigue on the individual and use the time more effectively for personal things or whatever.
Yeah, that's really the view the panel actually has on this. And I think Shanai really touched upon an important point, what is going to happen in the next 5 years or 8 years or so when it comes to connectivity, right? And we have Suresh, who is really an expert on connectivity here sitting. I wanted to hear from you, Suresh, from Nokia perspective, what do you really think, how are you really utilizing this great opportunity that is sitting in front of all of us, and what are the things that you are personally involved with, as well as the company is actually working on today?
Yeah, thanks, Santosh. Yeah, so it's from a Nokia perspective, clearly, I mean, one of the key businesses that we work in is the communication aspect. And what we see, this is kind of a new vertical for us where, instead of just communicating for, we used to be about connecting people, but now it's about connecting cars, connecting things, and so on and so forth. So one of the key trends that we see emerging is the ability for, cars to talk to each other, this vehicle-to-vehicle communication, vehicle-to-infrastructure, and vehicle-to-pedestrian, for instance, to ensure that that pedestrian gets a sufficient warning, so maybe he's a disabled person, gets sufficient warning that there is a car nearby, and similarly the car gets sufficient warning that there is a pedestrian nearby. And one of the other things that we've seen with these autonomous cars is, it's primarily about, let's say, mainly about improvements in sensor technology where, essentially cars are, kind of staying within their lanes, are ensuring that they're not colliding with the car in front and so on and so forth. But we see a critical aspect of communications coming in when basically the density of cars on roads, there's been a study in the US where they've said that if you have autonomous cars, you can have essentially 4 times the density of cars on the highways, as they have today, right? So, which essentially would mean that, for instance, an Indian kind of density of cars on the roads, but with speeds that match the Western speeds, right? So Indian kind of car densities, but with Western kind of speeds. And if you want to enable that, we believe that it's not sufficient that, that only sensor technology improves. We believe that, for the cars, when they have the distance between the cars very small, the way to kind of, that the car in front has braked for that information to go all the way to the back should not be through propagation of just sensor information, but should be through a device-to-device communication or device to roadside unit and back to a device communication that basically tells the car at the back that car in front is now braked, and all the cars behind basically are able to kind of take evasive action just in time. So to have the kind of speeds in the West with the kind of densities that we have in India, we see as is being enabled by these kinds of communication technologies. So, and what we also see in addition is there's plenty of this 4G and 5G technologies that are enabling vehicle-to-vehicle communication in a way that you can have 1 millisecond latency or less for 2 cars to communicate with each other, right? So we see that happening both in the 4G technology as well as in the 5G technology. That's that's one of the emerging trends that we see.
If you had to pick between vehicle-to-vehicle communication and vehicle-to-infrastructure communication as really one of the important modes of communications this will actually enable, right? Is there a vote or a preference for you on which is actually going to be the initial leading indicator for this?
I think it will be a combination of both. I mean, we believe that there will be basically a short-range communication that a vehicle-to-vehicle will be able to do. But if you want some information to percolate, further down, maybe in the case of, let's say, platooning kind of thing, when you want that information to percolate further down, you really need kind of this infrastructure mode. But I think, maybe the first technologies that will emerge will be the vehicle-to-vehicle because, it's easier to kind of wire up vehicles maybe with communication technologies than have roadside units. That kind of communication infrastructure may take a while to come. And the other thing that we also see in all these technologies is that they should work without an infrastructure in place also because very often when you're kind of driving in rural areas, maybe there isn't a communication infrastructure, but you still want these connected vehicles kind of improvements to improve basically safety and, accident avoidance and so on and so forth.
Absolutely, very good point. I think, what is your view, Kamal, on where things actually are from Volvo's perspective, right? I mean, where do you really see technology coming in over there, and how your center is playing a role? You run a big center over here from Volvo, so.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'll just take a step back to say that I'm going to deal with a little larger animal, which is a commercial vehicle, not really a car. But the story is very similar. I mean, as Shenoy rightly pointed out, we have been working on, it's an evolutionary phase. We've been working on various aggregates getting automated, starting with automatic transmission, then you have automatic braking systems, automatic parking systems, and then all this would ultimately lead to an autonomous or a fully automated vehicle. So that's on the first front. The second question which you posed to Shenoy was, what are the drivers of this? I think the drivers are very clearly, in our case, urbanization, digitalization, new skill requirements, productivity, logistics cost. When today, if I share a number with you, in India, our logistics cost is about 13% of GDP, whereas globally it's about 8 percentage points, which means if you take the GDP size of India at about $2,000 billion, we are losing about $100 billion on inefficient logistics. And that's also thanks to the lack of GST not being there, India not being a unified market. We have 43% idle time for trucks. So I think these are some of the things which will change with automation, and autonomous vehicle will be the last step. To my mind, 2025 to 2030 is the thing which we are looking at. And just to let you know, just about 2 months back, we have launched our first autonomous truck and a platooning truck, which meant that we had a truck which was driven by the first truck was driven by a driver, and the balance 9 trucks were following behind, connected digitally, and they were at 1.3 seconds behind each of these. So this led to about 20% improvement in fuel economy and almost 30% lesser carbon footprint. So I think these are the kind of advantages which we're going to see.
Absolutely, these are exciting. At this point of time, I would actually like to open the panel for questions here. Right, please raise your hand, tell your name. I'm sure somebody will actually give you a mic. Yes.
Hello, my name is Vishwanath. I am from Philips. The question is, you talked about carbon footprint. What is the impact of maintaining the data servers and the communication infrastructure which is necessary to maintain a really reliable infrastructure across the country, which would be terribly having impact on the air conditioners, the data servers, the heat generated, and the maintenance?
Who wants to take it? You want to take it,
Yeah,
Suresh?
so maybe I can
I'm
talk.
not the back-end guy.
I can kind of answer a little bit related to the communication technology. So again, what we are seeing, as in the communication technologies that are kind of enabling these connected cars is that, a lot of the functionality is actually now moving to the data center, to the cloud, and where basically we are able to kind of use compute resources on an as-needed basis and shut down processing that is not needed. So a lot of the communication infrastructure now, that base station functionality or some of the, let's say in the case of connected cars, roadside unit functionality, we expect a lot of the compute power to be sitting here, in the cloud, in the data center, and the ability to, kind of bring in compute power on an as-needed basis and shut it down when it's not needed. You get these kind of statistical multiplexing gains because, the same geographical location doesn't always have the communication need at the same time. I mean, maybe highways are occupied during daytime but not on nighttime, or let's say city roads are occupied in daytime but not in the nighttime. So then you don't need your, let's say communication infrastructure to be always on. So you can shut it down. So these are technologies that we are seeing that help make sure that the communication technologies behind it is all green and clean and so on. So, and the other thing that emerging trend that we are seeing is, the ability to kind of push out a lot more throughput, but still make sure that, the amount of energy consumption is quite low. So this is, again, I mean, just from a communication angle, we see that, all of this improvement doesn't come at the cost of, more energy consumption and so on. So this, I think, we're all aware of, and, certainly is part of our research and development.
Okay, we'll take one more question. There is a gentleman here in the front who raised a hand. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name is Hari. See, my question is mainly thinking that the autonomous cars are there to come in. They're already there. Now, how much of focus is there from you guys on the overall security of connections? Today you're saying it's connected world. How much of focus are you putting in on the overall security of these connections and ensuring that it is not misused anywhere?
I can say something from, am I audible? I can say something at least from a Mercedes-Benz perspective, because as soon as we started looking at autonomous cars, especially from a communications perspective, there's one thing that the car and the software is looking at the environment and deciding what to do next. And there's another thing about data, private data, user data, car data, all kinds of data getting into the system, into the cloud. And we've started right in parallel with the first testing of an autonomous, semi-autonomous, whatever car, also the topic of data encryption and data security, especially in a country like Germany. You can imagine where the laws are very, very stringent on data protection and privacy protection. This is an important topic. So one of a big branch of IT of ours is actively working on technologies and testing out the data security part to keep it at that level.
You can actually say it and then I'll repeat it because you can raise your hand. Go ahead, sir. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah.
Most of this. Am I
Wait.
audible? Yeah. Yeah. Hello, sir. I am Prashant. I am from HP. My question is, like, most of this development that is happening is from a US and more advanced world perspective. How is it in the context of India? I mean, for example, we are a country with most of the two-wheelers. And unless you have, and I don't see anybody from two-wheeler industry in your panel also. So unless, unless you help, I mean, how would be the future of, like, autonomous driving for two-wheelers also? Because unless those people are also autonomous, whatever you do, most of the vehicles on the Indian road are two-wheeler and they will fail you doing the autonomous driving in India. So,
Okay, maybe I can.
I mean, my question is, like, multiple dimensions, like, are we, like, solving the problems of Western world and advanced world, or is it something happening in an Indian context where, Indian realities are much different from road perspective to two-wheeler density perspective to indiscipline to everything?
Yeah, I fully agree, considering the environment we are in and the amount of vehicles we have. But I think, like I mentioned, when you talk about automated driving, if we take the two-wheeler, it starts right from the engine, making it more cleaner, things like that. Now, there are electronics coming up to make it more cleaner, so the injection is better, the engine is performing better with less emissions. Next, coming to safety, there are already projects running where the Safe Connect, to connect the two-wheeler itself to the environment, so that if there's an emergency call or any accident that happens, these are applicable even in India. But even coming to navigation, I think meanwhile, I don't think our kids are able to drive around in Bangalore from point A to point B without a navigation system. This is something even most of the two-wheeler guys are even today using. And you can optimize the route, and I think that is where carbon footprint and topics like that come up. It is not just total automation, but even other infrastructure using the right maps, doing the optimum planning applies for two-wheelers. And I think these are technologies where the youngsters are already using, and there would be further development from the overall safety. I mean, bringing other safety systems into it, like the ABS and ESP.
Absolutely,
Probably.
I totally agree with him. I mean, autonomous is the ultimate, probably ultimate destination. But I think there are going to be many evolutionary steps. You will make many aggregates automated so that you are less prone to human error. So I think that's going to be one of the key aspects. So every country will have its own timelines and its own evolution. And India, as you rightly said, will go a different path.
I was just wanting to add something. Jokes apart, actually, even in a country like Germany, the discussion society level is actually that there will be, for a long time, further mixed mode of existence on the streets. Don't expect that even in a Western nation that when you say autonomous or semi-autonomous, the whole society is going to switch from point A to point B right away. Germany is preparing itself for a mixed mixed traffic system. That point what he also brought up from Nokia about mixed mode of city and non-city traffic where infrastructure is different. We may be an extreme case, but a Western nation is not really far away from also thinking about it. It's just like the rest of the society where we talk about divides and how it exists. The industry is preparing itself for a coexistence of various kinds. And going by the holistic view, if you want to equip your car with electronics, that it sees what a driver sees. And today, if a driver sees a cyclist or a truck driver who doesn't believe in autonomous, and then the autonomous car should also be able to see it and react, as simple as that. So we're actually working on that, and not simply on replacing something in Germany or in the US.
Now, if you take an example of an aircraft, it's fully automated, but yet you don't have one pilot, you have two pilots. So it's a combination. Automation along with manual override will have to be the solution going forward. It's not going to be that easy, it's going to be totally autonomous to my mind.
Okay, that's a view. We will move from technology at this point of time to what should we really do from a legislative angle, legal angle, because this is not something that just from a technology angle alone we can actually make a progress, because there are a lot of things that is involved with it from a legal side as well, right? So I just want to quickly start with you, right? I mean, what do you think that is actually happening? Which are the societies that is actually making a better progress from a legislative angle over here? And can we really add to this on, is there anything that we can actually try to do from an India angle, any one of you, right, that we can actually do? That will be big help.
But I think definitely, as most of you here know, US and Europe, Germany especially, is quite advanced in discussing at the VDA, at the various forums that they have. We have at Daimler a sustainability dialogue every year, and since the last 2 years, November this year as well, we will discuss very strongly societal acceptance and legal positions of autonomous driving. The only registered truck with an official registration plate, it's a truck by the way, in Nevada for autonomous is in the US, and we were allowed to drive the F015, the luxury in motion car in the US. The Bertha Benz drive happened in Germany. So in that way, I think these two, US and Europe, are much more advanced thinking, talking, and involving their societies in it. This is one part of the legal aspect or the societal aspect. Second part is the liability part, which is much discussed, including the latest news that you may have seen where one autonomous driving attempt went haywire. What really happens is, if you look at how it is today, driver, the owner, if it's not the same as the driver, and the manufacturer, depending on if a defect is coming all the way from that side. These three pillars are very clearly defined in a country like Germany, for example. So if there's an accident, you can really say, is it a driver error? Is it something to do with ownership, not regularly maintained? Or is it really a manufacturing defect? And they are taking these three pillars of discussions very strongly into the autonomous in the same way. So there's focused discussion on how these three pillars can further continue to be the focus in a country like Germany, at least on which I can explicitly comment. So that's where we are involved right now.
Any of you have a view on this from a legislative side?
I mean,
Kamal?
the UN convention recently agreed that you can test some pilots on road as long as there is a person inside the vehicle to shut it off. So you will not allow, as of today, a completely autonomous vehicle on the road. So that's one part. On the mining sector, which is off highway, they have allowed certain tests with completely driverless vehicles, underground and also open cast mining. So I think those are some of the things which have happened. In India, we have an act of IT 2000, year 2000. Lots of machine to machine issues are involved there. So they are going through a discussion with TARI. So hopefully over the next couple of years, we will see some very, very clear guidelines on the legislation piece.
Can I ask you a slightly different topic on the legislations, right? I mean, there are a lot of, from an India angle, when you really look at it, right, there are a lot of startups and other things really working in this technology, and we've actually seen several people trying to do algorithm development and other things that is actually happening, right? What will be your advice, Chennai, on what we can actually give it to such kind of people, and how do you really think their work can actually be absorbed in a meaningful way when it comes to production of some of these vehicles, right? You play an important role from a tier 1 perspective there. So
yeah, I think there is a major portion of the work which can be done, the involvement of startups. In fact, that's the reason why even in Bosch we started a Startup Connect and Accelerator program to involve some of the startups to look at some ideas where we can work jointly, or if there are ideas which can be brought in. But typically in the automated vehicle scenario, there are a lot of not only the product development part of it, but even services that come around. If you look at even things like what happened with Uber or Ola, with autonomous car, actually there are a lot of other things that will come around. The way the ownership will happen, the way the development can be happen in terms of business model around it. And there I think a lot of innovation can be done, and that is where I think startups will play a parallel role. Where the large companies, probably the OEMs or tier 1 would have, even though we are focusing on it, probably that will not be the #1 priority, but there are things that can be done building business models around it, where these automated vehicles will have much better possibility. For example, when you talk about even the parking, which I mentioned, fully automated parking where you can just leave the car, the availability of parking lot, the information to the user, the other decisions the driver can take while he's driving because of the information that's available. There are business models that can be built around this jointly with startups, and that is where in addition to product engineering or development, we see a major role that can be played, which can disrupt the whole industry.
And you believe that that is where initially the startups will play a significant role compared to the other aspects of actual
I think both of them, because when I talked about the automated driving, there are some components and ideas that we have seen coming up from startups, whether it's a connectivity itself and bringing information. For example, diagnostics and things like that are already there, even in India it's available. And the features that can be used for servicing of the vehicle, connecting vehicles to service centers, etc. These are already there, and then there are components, whether we talk about security, for example, building secure systems and solutions that are needed on each one of the embedded systems. There are many startups building for that, and these are potential areas which actually can be developed very small way in a startup, work jointly with many together and to accelerate the development. Because this cannot happen in a waterfall model. I think all of us have to work together to accelerate the whole development. That is exactly what's happening on the West Coast actually, by the way. And that is what I feel in Bangalore is quite possible. We being a Silicon Valley, almost all MNCs are in India, plus there are so many startups coming up. But I feel the missing link is that we don't, at the moment, collaborate so much that we can actually develop these much faster, suitable for, say, Indian conditions.
That's a good point you made, actually.
Absolutely.
Collaboration could be the key to
Absolutely.
accelerating this, yeah.
Absolutely. We will definitely talk about it. Questions on this topic, business model, usage models actually coming in, legal legislation, comments, questions? Yes.
Since I have the mic first.
Sure.
So one of the things that I was also wanting to ask is about, it's not just the recent episode of the car crash, the autonomous car crash, right? But we know of instances with Toyota in the past, and this is probably 5-10 years before, where even with whatever electronics existed in the car, there were many unexplained occurrences which were, led to, fatalities. So what can we really do to make sure that while all of this rapid innovation is happening, we're really conscious about, the driver and the passengers in the car?
I think my point is, hello, straight away I can assure you that this is a process of evolution which we've said. A lot of trials and testing will have to be done before it is released for commercial usage. That's part one. But having said that, the number of accidents are expected to reduce many-fold once you have autonomous or semi-autonomous driving possibilities, whether in trucks or in cars. That's a given. Because most of the accidents, it's been proven, are happening due to human error. So I think in terms of numbers, percentages, it's going to be a better situation going forward. However, this will have to be a collaboration of the entire ecosystem. There will have to be harmonization of protocols. There has to be a traffic management system which has to withstand all kinds of protocols, all kinds of vehicles. So I think all of that work will have to be done to reach that level.
92% of the accidents are human errors, as much as we all believe that we are all great drivers, right? So there was one more question over there. Yes.
Hello, this is Vishwanath from Philips again. This is in terms of security. We are talking of driverless car. Then it also implies that it is people-less car. So that means we have built a tremendous infrastructure where a car can go without a person inside. don't you think we are designing a beautiful system for security threat? That you can put anything in it and a well-programmed car can go anywhere without a guy inside it and can explode.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't really think there is any answer for evil any technology can ever provide to anybody, but we can definitely make sure that that comes down. Right? Any other comments or questions? Yes.
I have two questions. One question he already asked. Thank you for that. Second question is that you said 99% of accidents because of human error. That's where all the insurance companies are surviving. What will happen to them?
It's 92 as per the studies that I've actually seen, but that's definitely somewhere there is going to be a business evolution coming. Anybody wants to comment on an insurance segment? I don't really play in the role at all. So.
Yeah, I think there will be some link somehow coming for the insurance, because now if you look at, for example, in Europe, depending on which color vehicle you buy or whether you have a parking lot for yourself, etc., the insurance terms changes. And now with the automated power, how much of functionality of automation you have on the vehicle, I'm sure will in future define the insurance terms. If you have automated braking, for example, 1 month back in US when I was driving, I had rented a car that had already emergency braking. And when I was going on a straight road, I was just chatting. It was so straight that you think nothing will happen, and suddenly one vehicle changed lane and came in between and it braked quite fast. It is quite possible in this particular instance I would have probably reacted slower or could have gone and hit that. I'm sure the insurance on this car premium could be much lower than the one which didn't have it. So over a time I think there is a linkage between the two, but there may be other reasons why you may have to insure the vehicle, maybe misuse and things like that. Quite possible. Yeah. So there is quite a dynamics that will come on there.
Did you have a view?
No, I just wanted to mention the keyword disruption.
Yeah.
Insurance is going to face some different challenge.
Absolutely.
Disruption.
At some point in time, maybe every software engineer has to insure himself when he develops software for such a automated car.
So, yes, last one maybe. Yeah. I guess Manu touched upon it in his answer. Do you want to answer that because?
It has got everyone.
Okay. Yeah.
Today we are still talking about a clean definition of, let's say, automobile-related service data and stuff like this that are actually signed off by the owner and kind of gets deposited in the right cloud, depending on what you want to do with it. So if you think your car has to be just like your Android phone has to go on the cloud and you accept the conditions and say, I want that following access to be given for that software. Technically, agree today, your car data is your service center, Mercedes, and they're able to kind of call you before and say, we can see it clocking, we can see a sensor failing, it's ready to come, This is already happening. I'm sure it will evolve. I mean, I don't have an answer about a target picture of how data will be taken care. But on the other hand, I'm sure this will evolve. There will be some very interesting discussions over that, especially in countries that have very stringent laws. It will evolve.
We have come to end of time for here discussions, right? I have one call for action for all of you over here. What we have actually seen, some of this you might have heard in the panel over here, there is tremendous work happening in this domain in India. Right? If there is a call for action for us is that, are there ways in which we can, between ourselves, can we really collaborate? We have talked about it and several of us really have plans to collaborate much further from where we are today. I'm sure that several of you are already working in this domain because this is the third topic that in this short time itself that we actually talked about autonomous cars, right? So if there are companies and people who are interested in collaborating with this, please get in touch with Zeno. We will actually try to see how we can leverage it. We will not collaborate on everywhere, but wherever we are possible for this, we have a call for action to see how we can actually try to do some things together, which actually makes a difference to our lives as well as to our businesses. Okay? Thank you.